So welcome once again, everybody, to the final debate. Um, I'm sure we all understand. I'm sure we all understand. All right. Sorry for the breaking transmission. I had to take care of something. So yes, we're back. We're ready. We have 20 people on the call, and we're ready to rumble. Right? I believe we all are ready for the debate and our presentation. So um. So we're going to be kicking off just now. So before we start, I will say the first speaker for each GSAG will speak for 7 minutes. So each of the three GSAGs, the first speakers will take 7 minutes to try to convince us, while the second speakers will take 5 minutes to try to drive their point home. And then finally, at the end, we'll have either the first speaker or the second speaker come back on stage to give us their final points. That's what we'll call the clap back, all right? So we're starting by 8:35, that's in 2 minutes. And the sages will go first. Then we'll have the conscious, the entrepreneurs will do the final bit before we take the cycle again, and then have the final part, which is the 5 minutes that could go to either the first speaker or the last speaker for each of the GSAGs. Please, I hope the rules are clear. Please, if you understood and it's clear, let me see some reactions in the chat room. Okay, Anuluapo said, you don't have to turn on your video if you don't want to. So we are at 8:35, and I expect the first speaker for Sages to take the floor and take us through his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Executive Director, Board of Directors, accurate timekeeper, my colleagues, the Honorable Sages, co-debaters, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Habiba Sulaiman from the Sages Lithospheric Department. I'm here to convince you all on where to begin the restoration of Nogu, a land once broken by war, now waiting for new life. And I stand before you today, this evening, to say this. We cannot rebuild a future if we ignore the very ground we stand on. I'll be explaining based on environmental angle, economic perspective, social impact, strategic importance. Also, my very good friend will after me conclude with more points and real life experience, just so you know the importance of starting with the lithosphere. The lithosphere, our land, is not just soil and stone. It is the foundation of life, of hope, and of home. Why the lithosphere first? Okay, the environmental angle first. The soil in Nugu has absorbed trauma, chemical waste, war debris, erosion, and degradation. If we settle people on poisonous ground, we are not just restoring, we are repeating history. Land restoration will prevent landslides, purify the soil, and lay the base for tree planting, which will in turn support both clean air and water. It's not isolation, it is integration. On the economics perspective, no business runs in sinking soil. No farm thrives in contaminated field. No road is built without first leveling the earth. By restoring the lithosphere, we create jobs construction, soil testing, surveying, and unlock safe spaces for agriculture, trade, and housing. Land is a tangible asset. When restored, it immediately contributes to economic revival. On the social impact, what is a city if it has no land to grow into? Restoring the lithosphere means healing a home. Families will return. Healing a home, communities will rebuild, and the people of Sogo will not feel boxed in but invited outward into restored secure space. You want people to believe this restoration is real? Let them see houses rising, gardens blooming, roads reconnecting old scars. This is social restoration. And lastly, strategic importance. Start with the land and the rest will follow. Restoring soil and terrain gives us access to purify water systems and plant trees to clean the air. It gives the environment measurable progress. It gives the government measurable progress to justify unlocking more resources. So I ask, how do we fix what is above if below? How do we fix what is above and what is below if what is under our feet is still broken? I believe, and even the other department, atmospheric and hydrospheric department, also will agree with me that we should begin where everything begins, with the ground beneath our feet. I still remain the head of the atmospheric department. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam HOD. Good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah Emilamo Mage, and I am a member of the Lithospheric
Hi,
Department.
hi. Sorry, you are not to speak now. Yeah, just hold on for the coordinator. As he explained earlier, the chief speaker for the next, he had called the next GSAG, that's the conscious GSAG. So the chief speaker for the conscious is to go next, not you yet.
Okay. Do my time starts counting now?
You can wait till 8:40, please. 8:40. Yeah, it's 8:40 now. Please proceed.
All right. Good evening, Chairman, accurate timekeeper, my wonderful judge, and my co-debaters. I remember myself, Solomon Ume, and on behalf of the conscious, I and my co-speaker is here to discuss the spheres of influence, Chattanooga restoration. This sphere is nothing other than the atmosphere. The first thing a baby does when he or she enters the world is gasp for air, not drink water, not step on land. Air is life's opening sentence. So I ask you this. How can we rewrite Nugo's story without giving it that first breath again? Today I stand here before you to say, before roads are laid or pipes are built, Nugo must breathe. Let's start where life starts. Just imagine a mother in Nugo 50 years from now. And she walks her child to school, and halfway there, the child collapses. Not from hunger, not from taste, but because the air was never made safe. Because we are rushed to build, to pour, or forget the breath of the land. Ask yourself this: what good is a home if the first thing you inhale it is a death sentence? Ladies and gentlemen, Nugo doesn't just need buildings or boreholes, it needs breaths. It needs healing from the top to down, and that healing begins with the atmosphere. Imagine being handed keys to a beautiful new home, but every time you breathe inside, you are poisoning your lungs. That what restoring Nugo without prioritizing the atmosphere looks like. According to the World Health Organization, we breathe in 2 times a day. Air is the first thing we encounter when we wake, the last before we sleep. And in a world post-conflict, air carries memories of smoke, gas, toxin, name it. Restoring Nugo without cleaning its atmosphere first is like painting over a cracked wall. Looks good, right? But see, it crumbles from within without keeping us in suspense any further. I will tell us why the atmosphere should be prioritized in Nugo restoration with these few points. Let's talk about immediate human survival. We might start with what's most urgent. Record has shown that humans can survive with air, which is atmosphere related, in a very, very, very dispensable way. World Health Organization also let us understand that humans can survive without food for 21 days, without water for about 7 to 12 days, but only minutes without air. It's very, very ugly to imagine. If the air in Nugo remains hazardous, nothing else matters, not roads, not homes, not even water tanks. Remember, Nugo was a war zone. The atmosphere likely still laced with remnants, lead particles, chemical warfare residues, suits, and radiation. If these particles are inhaled, we are facing respiratory diseases, cancer, infant mortality, and mass migration failure. And soldiers already overpopulated will bunk under health burden. Not to make mention, cancer is being recorded in 2020 as a leading cause of mortality worldwide. It was accounted for nearly 10 million deaths, representing about 1 in 6 deaths globally. Moving on to the next point, let's talk about economic gates, how the atmosphere is not just essential, but very crucial. Restoring the atmosphere phase is not just humane, it's economic. Why this? Clean air is a productive workforce. In January 2011, states and EPA initiated Clean Air Act. It's been carefully studied, tested, and to be the best way of boosting economics since the time of Richard Nixon in the year 1970, December to be precise, exactly. Because businessmen won't invest in an area with toxic air. Investors follow safety. Additionally, tourism, agriculture, and tech startups always wait until clean air is guaranteed. And from an environmental standpoint, air restoration is measurable. Air quality indexes provide real-time feedback. That means within 3 months, we can show undeniable progress and unlock further funding. Furthermore, let's look into another point, which is social acceptance and mental health. You know what else air gives us? Trust, hope, unity. The moment the skies over Nugo start to clear, people will believe again. Families will relocate, children will play outside. Mental health improves when skies are blue. And you clearly say it with me. That's the social value of atmosphere. It's most public, visible sign of healing. And the last point, but not the least, let's discuss also atmosphere strategic advantage for other spheres. Atmosphere restoration helps the stage for hydrosphere, lithosphere restoration. Why? Because air pollutants seep into our rivers, into the soils. Acid rain drops, and when acid rain drops, it affects our crops. Cleaning air first slows soil degradation and protects water. And unlike the land or water cleanup, which takes years, air purification shows results within weeks with green walls, carbon scrubbers, reforestation, and emission regulations. Just like the European cities, records show that European cities have showed improvement in air quality more than the other spheres between 2022 and 2023, with more cities falling in the green safe category. Hear me, please. Restoring Nuga must begin where life itself begins. That is breath. Let Nuga breathe again. Everything else, soil, water, and people will follow. Thank you.
That's very brilliant. Thank you for that presentation, and it was quite on time too. That was great. That was good. And yeah, of course, the last presenter for Sages, you did a very wonderful job. I really, really appreciate and commend the work and the efforts so far. So the first speaker for the entrepreneurs would start by 8:47. By 8:47, you can start. Please confirm you can hear me.
Good evening, everyone. Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I would like to confirm I'm audible before I start.
Yes, you're very audible.
All right, then. So I may not be checking my time, or I would appreciate if in the comment section I am being reminded of my time and all this stuff.
Yeah, you have 7 minutes and it started already. So go
Oh,
ahead.
with that being said, I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Now, while tonight's argument might be focused and centered on which sphere is most important, I stand here to tell you today that it is beyond just the importance of which sphere should come first, but it embodies in general the hope of restoration that it brings to the people of Nujo, and not just the town of Nujo, but the general city of Sogal at large. Before I proceed to properly and critically analyze the reason why hydrosphere should be the starting point for restoration efforts and explain why it is the most important of all spheres in restoring hope, not just to the town of Nugu, but to the city of Sogal at large, I will first be rebutting the point of my opponent. Allow me to first of all establish protocol. The panel of judges, accurate timekeeper, fellow co-debaters, and the general audience. I am Onoluwapo, representing the entrepreneurship GSAG, and tonight I will not only be explaining why hydrosphere should be the starting point for restoration, but also properly analyzing how it brings hope to the people of Nugu and Soga at large, which is the core importance of our debate tonight. But as I rightly said earlier, I will first of all be giving rebuttals to our opponents. But Lithosphere, which is land, has claimed that it is the most important because in their arguments, they formed that there is need for farming. I need not to remind you that farming without water is incomplete. While there might be forms and ways in which they can try to derive water, without any form of water, it is not proper for you to claim that you are farming. So while it is important to restore the land, it is more important to first of all restore the water body. Now, what does hydrosphere even mean in the first place? Hydrosphere is the Earth's water component encompassing, I repeat, encompassing all liquid, solid, which might include ice, and gaseous, which might include water vapor, water forms. What does this mean? Hydrosphere is not just the typical sea and the typical rivers and lakes. It also includes glaciers, rain, and other forms of groundwater. Why then is hydrosphere more important? Before I move into that, rebutting lithosphere and then also rebutting atmosphere. Atmosphere claims that yes, it is important for us to breathe. And without breathing, every other thing is null and void. While this is not completely denied, on our own side of the house, we claim to make you understand that oxygen cannot only be derived from air and from trees, which the lithosphere has claimed is important. So yes, farming might be important, especially because these trees can serve as sources of oxygen to us. And lithosphere is also atmosphere rather is also important because we as humans need air. But I stand here to say the hydrosphere is the most important of them all. We are not disregarding that atmosphere and lithosphere are not important, but we are saying that hydrosphere is more important because it is crucial not just for we as humans, but even for animals. Animals need water to drink. The farming and irrigation that lithosphere has claimed to be important cannot be fully complete without water. Even for oxygen, let us not forget that oxygen is made of two component atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. So H2O, which is water, is more of hydrogen than oxygen in the first place. And let me not remind you, like I said, the hydrogen is more important because it also helps aquatic life. What do I mean? The oxygen that we breathe as humans cannot be breathed by aquatic animals because they cannot absorb it. And as a result, oxygen needs to first be dissolved and can only be dissolved in water. And without that, it is as a result, this proves why hydrogen is more important as it is essential for the survival of aquatic life. Now, having rebutted the point of our opponent, let me now expand and deepen your understanding on why hydrogen is most important, not just as a spare, but to the people of Nago and Sogal at large. According to the United Nations World Trade Organization in 2019, it was recorded that water bodies was the most common way for transportation of goods and services, even more than land and sea. What does this mean? The cargoes, the things, importations, exportations, they matter. And by the time we, as the director of Hydrosphere, propose these things to the government and they see why the first 3 months, which is crucial for the remaining 1 year of the restoration recommendations of the scientists who have worked hard for 50 years to restore the land of Nugu. When the government realized the importance of restoring hydrosphere, not just as an element, but in the long-term run, in terms of exportations, importations, and tourism, they would understand and beyond doubt be willing to then drop money for the other 2 spheres, and then all spheres can be happy, but not just being happy as directors of these spheres, but restoring hope to the people of Sogal and Nugo in general. Also, it was regarded and recorded by the United Nations Environmental Programme in 2019 that the hydrosphere facilities is 80% global nitrogen and phosphorus cycling. What does this mean? Water is very important in our basic lives. We bath, we cook, and without these things, there is no point of being human when we cannot carry out the basic activities. Yes, it was said in our basic elementary science that water is made of 70% of the world. And it is true because even as humans, our body mass and our system is made of 70% of liquid, from our blood to every other liquid form to water. So also is nature. Nature encompasses not just the sea, the rivers, and the lakes. It encompasses the rain, it encompasses the glaciers, and every other form of groundwater. Therefore, if hydrosphere is restored first, it then proves to be a glimmer of hope to other spheres being restored, and in general, the restoration of hope for the entire city of Sogal and the town of Nugo. With that, this side of the house is proud to propose that hydrosphere should be the starting point for restoration efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that presentation, Anolapo. Yes, I would like to say that there will be time for rebuttals. We reserved 5 minutes that can be used by either the chief speaker or the seconder to make rebuttals at the end, towards the end, all right? So we'll have enough time for you to do your rebuttals. So Now we're going to go to the second speakers. So the second speakers, we're going to start from the bottom this time around. So we're going to start from the second speaker for entrepreneurs. After that, we'll have the conscious, and finally we'll have the sages. So in the next minute, the second speaker for the entrepreneurs starts by 8:57. The second speaker for the entrepreneurs, you can start. You have 5 minutes.
Co-debaters, moderating GSAMs, and fellow Greenies. I want to join my chief speaker, Anu, to support the motion of the restoration of the hydrosphere in Ugatan for the first 3 months with the following point. Firstly, to reiterate, what is the hydrosphere? The hydrosphere consists both in the liquid form, the solid, and the gaseous form. Now, for the liquid form, it includes lakes, rivers, oceans, and groundwater. For solid, it includes the glaciers, ice caps, and iceberg. Now, for the gaseous form, it includes water vapor. Now, according to the Environmental Literacy Council, salt water makes up 97% of water bodies, while 3% is for fresh water. Now, the importance of the restoration of the hydrosphere in Nuga. Why is it important? It's important because it promotes or is essential for plants and animal growth. According to Earth Howe, water is a universal solvent. In other words, it is essential in the transportation of nutrients to plants and animals. Now, in humans, it supports both cooking and drinking. It also supports climate or temperature regulation through the hydrological cycle. The hydrological cycle simply consists of evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. Precipitation simply means could be in the form of rain or snow. Now, the process of the hydrological cycle encourages the regulation of the temperature. It cleans the atmosphere from toxic chemicals. Also, the hydrological cycle supports biodiversity by preserving aquatic life. Water vapor also helps to trap heat and ultraviolet rays, which means we are safe from the greenhouse emissions. Now, I want to go to an example, a very important example here in Nigeria. When you take a look at the RENEP report in Ogoniland, it was observed that 41 sites in Eleme and Tai, where the groundwater was polluted, it led to stress in livelihood, the standard of living, and biodiversity. Now, this underscores the point that hydrosphere is very important in community and of a nation. Now, how do we relate this to the economy? The hydrosphere is important in the generation of electricity through hydropower, which is essential for industry. It's also important in transportation. We often forget that heavy goods and materials cannot be transported by air or land. It must come through the ocean or through the seas. And that is where hydrosphere is so important. It also supports the cultivation of crops for agriculture. We also to know that in areas where there is drought, even here in Nigeria and some parts of the northern Nigeria, irrigation system is very important. And so the hydrosphere and the water bodies can be used for such purpose. In conclusion, I want to say that the restoration of the hydrosphere in Nuga should come first in the first 3 months because it is central to support of growth of plants and animals. It helps with temperature regulation and is essential for economic growth and development. With these 3 points of mine, I hope I've been able to convince you that the restoration of Nuga should begin with the hydrosphere. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. That was apt. So can we have the next speaker?
Good day, Mr. Chairman, Brian of Judges, great timekeeper, co-debaters, my fellow co-debaters. My name is Adejimi Kayode, supporting my chief speaker to strongly advocate that we must begin with the restoration of Lagos town with the atmosphere. We're considering the atmosphere firstly. Taking it from the scratch, from the importance that was stated to us, which are the environmental, considering the environmental importance, the economy importance, and the social importance. We have to take into consideration the breathable air. That is, human can survive weeks without food. Note that. That is considering the lithosphere, and days without clean water. That is for the hydrosphere. But only minutes without clean air, human cannot survive. That is obvious at what is happening generally that we are all aware of. Looking at the current condition, of Lagos town, the war that devastated Enugu likely left behind pollutants, toxic gases, and particulate matter in the air. Without clean air, the air remains hazardous, even if land and water are later restored. Air is just everywhere. Unlike land and water, air cannot be easily contained. Polluted air in Enugu town could drift into worsening health conditions in the entire city. That is, air is a rapid form such that it moves rapidly, which can easily circulate all over and everywhere. Considering the economic importance, that is, attracting early investments and settlers. That is, these settlers and businesses and residents will hesitate to move into Lagos town if air quality is poor, regardless of the land and water quality. Reducing the healthcare cost itself is one of the most important, the economic importance that has to be taken into consideration. Clean air reduces the risk. Clean air reduces the risk of respiration diseases, lowering future healthcare expenses for the government and citizens. Supporting construction and development. Taking for example, I personally myself, I am an aspiring engineer. That is, which means that with all what I've been taught, I cannot and will never work in a place where the air is not safe. That is to perform restoration projects on land and water. Without it, further development is stalled. Though there is a saying that water is life, but air is life's delivery system. Without breathable air, no amount of clean water or soil matters. Looking at the psychological safety, clean, fresh air gives residents confidence that the town is safe. It improves mental health and community morale. And also considering the quick measurable results, we can vividly look at and say that air quality can be rapidly monitored and improvements can be demonstrated within the 3 months that was initially given for the activation of and restoration of Lagos town using air sensors and health data. Water testing might be faster. Atmospheric physics prevents recurring pollution. Looking at the visible impacts, that is, improved air quality will be immediately felt. Less more, clearer skies, better breathing, making it easier to convince the government that the restoration is succeeding and to unlock more funding. So, considering the atmosphere firstly, will also help us to support the other spheres. That is, in terms of the interdependence, clean air improves soil health, reduces acid rain and soil contamination, water quality, less atmospheric deposition of pollutants. It helps for safe working environments. Crews can safely work on land, remediation and water purification once air is no longer in health hazard. It also helps in reduction of greenhouse gases and climate stabilization, which can really also help to improve soil and water quality, indirectly, because pollutants from the atmosphere often settle into soil and water system through rainfall. That is, at considering the atmospheric deposition. By cleaning the air, you naturally reduce new contamination to land and water, making future restoration of these spheres easier and cheaper. Lithosphere, which is the soil, might affect agriculture more, but crops cannot grow in toxic air. That is, the ozone demand to plants. Air remediation supports faster land recoveries. It also helps for ecosystem regeneration, so that
Your
airborne
time
pollutants.
is up.
Going to the conclusion part, soil restoration is meaningless if airborne heavy metals continually deposit into plants with won't
Sorry,
thrive
your
in toxic
time is
air
up.
matter.
Your time is
I
up.
hope this point of you have been able to convince and not to confuse that restoration of the atmosphere should be considered firstly before the other sphere. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's try as much as possible to work with time because it might still affect your scores. All right. So finally we have the second speaker from the stages. Your time starts right about now.
Thank you very much, sir. Good evening, everyone. My name is Zipporah Emilamo Amage, and I am a member of the Lithospheric Department. Please permit me to stand on existing protocols. So I want us to first remember that the government has given us 3 months as a trial phase to show progress in restoring one spare. And I'm here to ensure that we start with the lithospheric spare. The goal is to prove that we can deliver measurable restoration. And I understand that, yes, you breathe the air, you drink the water, but how can you go about this if the land you are doing all this is not safe? Before I continue, I wanted to just take note that we have 3 months to build trust, progress, and securing more resources, not immediate resettlement. People are not coming here to live after 3 months. They're coming here to live after 1 year. So we have 1 year to ensure that we get the needed resources to ensure this. So I want us to take note of this. I'm going to go about 3 things: practicality and visibility, holistic sustainability, and securing accessibility. Under practicality and visibility, I want us to take note of this. Unlike air and water, land transformation is visible and trackable. You can go ahead and detoxify the soil. You can map out zones. You can begin reforestation. You can begin rebuilding. These are visible things that the government can see. Yes, you can give them a spreadsheet and say, oh, the water is this, the air is this, but they need to see that the land is doing well to properly agree that, yes, we are making progress. Another thing for us to note now is holistic sustainability. Fixing the land helps prevent future further pollution of the air and water. We plant the trees, they reduce carbon, which we plant the tree, certain plants, the water, they help with water filtration. When the lithosphere is strong, the hydrosphere can flow without contamination, and vegetation helps regulate this atmosphere. It's like saying that let's start with hydrosphere or let's start with the atmosphere. It's like mopping the ground while the tap is still running. Yes, you're cleaning, but it's still going to be contaminated. Now, for the third thing, I want us to take note of security and accessibility. The land gives us control, unlike air that moves and water that flows. But land, we can map out a section and say, oh, this is safe. Let's start planting here. Or let's secure this side for residential area. And those are things that we need to know. We need to take note of this. We need to show the government that, okay, we have started preparing the land for human migration. So another thing I want to take note of, practical examples, is that Rwanda, for example, the post-genocide restoration, 1994 onward, one of the first major restoration projects was stabilizing the land. Why? Because without securing fertile soil and stable ecosystem, people could not resettle safely on the farm. For example, now the Kosovo War, after the Kosovo War between 1998 and 1999, the war heavily damaged Kosovo environment. The first thing they focused on was the land. Even the United Nations Environment Program highlighted that clearing the land was the most important thing above the other spheres. I understand that there's no general policy that says, oh, let's start with the land. But it is an unspoken policy that we start with the land first. The only time when other spheres are prioritized is when the situation is dire. Like, for example, during the Beijing Olympic, the government decided to focus on reducing air pollution because it's the Olympic. People are coming all over the world to that place. That is why they focused on it. But it is always the land that is focused on first and foremost. So in conclusion, I want us to take note of this. We all agree that we need the sky, we need the sea, but you cannot reach either without standing firmly on the land. If the land is not safe, people are going to clear the water, people are going to take care of the air. They're not safe. That's potential risk. So please, let's all take note of this. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. That was great. And thank you all the second speakers that have spoken and made some very, very striking points. And now to the best part, the rebuttals. Okay, so we have 5 minutes for either the first speaker or the second speaker from each of the GSACs to come on and give us their final thoughts, and if they have a rebuttal. So we'll have the conscious first, the sages second, and the entrepreneurs last. So the conscious, the sages, the entrepreneurs. So the conscious, your time starts now. 5 minutes, please.
Please, sorry, I did not get your point, sir.
Don't worry, I'm on it, co-speaker. Good evening, everyone, once again. I remember myself, Slomo Onume, on behalf of the conscious. And having heard, sorry, what my co-debaters have to say, I must say, you guys are doing just fine. But except, we forget what we call primary and basic needs. First, I would like to start with the lithosphere. I heard them saying about farming is beautiful, no doubt about that. But let's pause for a minute and think about this. How could you farm on a land that is poisonous? Let's not forget, there is what is called acidic rain. How do this acidic rain occur? Acidic rain occurs when the atmosphere is polluted. And if it is polluted and rain falls, it takes those polluted substances into the soil. Without wasting time, moving to my direct hydrosphere, I heard you talking about transportation. Beautiful. But may I also remind you that the sea, the ocean is not the only means of transportation. That aside, talking about ships, cargoes, beautiful. But let me also remind us, when the water or the water bodies gets contaminated, there's increase in the pH scale known as the acidity level. And when this happens, there's what we call flooding. And when flooding happens, it doesn't just wipe out a community if care is not taken and controlled. It can wipe out an entire nation. That aside, when the pH level in the water increases, there's a very high death rate for aquatic animals. And when this happens, humans don't just starve, but also it brings an imbalance to the whole ecosystem. Now, without wasting much time, I heard with them saying that you have to build it, and I say, you don't build roads on poisoned lands. You don't lay pipes under a choking sky. Because tell me, how can workers work under such conditions? Breath is the beginning. Before land or water can serve us, the air must first save us. Land without breath is dead, I must tell you. Because the land needs to grow, the water needs to flow. But the first thing they both need is to breathe. Dead air means dead land and poison seas. And I also remind you, you talk about foundations, it was fair, but then the atmosphere is the visible foundation of life, without which no amount of rich soil or clean water can save a city. Now, do the maths. Polluted air is equal to polluted soil and water. When acid rains fall from dirty skies, it burns the land and poisons the water. How do you grow crops on acid? How do you drink dirt? I can't start to imagine this. Heal the air, and the land and water follow. Ignore the air, and we lose all three. And let me also bring us to our core discussion here, which he says we need the one to start with so that the more fundings can be released. Now, tell me this. When you want to use our first fundings to start reviving the roads and workers tends to die, how could you now impress our investors that there need for a raising of more funds? Now, tell me, when you go into trying to restore our water bodies and then causes flooding, flushing out every other thing they have on ground, how can we convince them to release more fundings? Now, listen. Every ghost of unclean air scraps away Nugo skin. You cannot rebuild a home on a land that is breathing dust. The air is the first architect. If the atmosphere stays broken, the land stays broken. There is no two ways about this. Without restoring the air, Nugo will not be a city. It will be a graveyard. You don't build houses so that you come and build graves. And you are not planning to build schools only for students to wander about with marks here and there. Remember, land without air is a corpse without breath. You don't bury Nugo, you revive it, start the breath. Because they say land is foundation, but I say breath is the beginning. Because land without air is a corpse without breath. Ladies and gentlemen, We don't need another graveyard of those. We need a city where dreams breathe again. And the restoration, the resurrection, all this begins with the air, begins with the breath, begins with the atmosphere. Let Nugo breathe again, and everything else will follow. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So the sages.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Okay, before I begin, I would like to remind everyone that we have 3 months. 3 months. And after that 3 months, people are not coming to live here. We're still going to be working on restoring the land within a year. So us creating different plan for restoring the lithosphere, there's a reason for that. When we start with showcasing that the lithosphere is being restored, other things will follow. Our aim is to acquire resources from the government for them to say, okay, go ahead, you guys can do it. That is the whole purpose of this. I understand that you said after the baby gasps for hair, after like the first breath the baby takes is gasping for hair. But after the baby takes air, where does the food the baby eat comes from? Let's remember that Nugo will probably be restored under a year before people can move in. But before then, we need to ensure everything is ready before then. Yes, you're talking about how if the air is not good, you can't grow anything. But remember, vegetation regulates the air. This is very important. And this vegetation, where does it come from? It comes from the land. Yes, air restoration starts within weeks, but we need to show visible results. They need to see that something is going on. All these are just more reasons that why we need to go ahead and say that yes, lithosphere is the right place to start with. I understand that. Definitely. There are many things you said I could go about and just talk about the hydrosphere as too. But I'll get to that. So yes, water is life, but let's be honest. What good is purified water if it flows through poisoned land? Without clean soil, rivers get recontaminated. The wells are unsafe. Restoring water without addressing land is like you're pouring clean water into dirty glass. It's not feasible at all. Yes, the air is important, but like I said, vegetation regulates the air. People that are going to come and take care of the air pollutants, water pollutants, if the soil is not good, if it is eroded, they are not safe. They stand at a risk. Imagine something happens and the ground collapses. Who is at the detriment of that? The people working to restore the air, people working to restore the water. Understand all this. I want you all to understand all this. Yes, we can go about restoring the air, we can go about restoring the water, but it's important that we start with the lithosphere. Another thing I want us to take note of is that. Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you very much. Another thing I want us to take note of is that acid rain occurs, yes, but how often does it occur? How often does it occur? It occurs everywhere, but yet farmland still grows. Okay, the hydrosphere team talked about how water ensures transportation, but remember, Nugo is adjacent to Sugo. We don't really need water to transport the goods and services. I cannot begin to stress the importance of starting with the lithosphere. We are losing sight of the fact that we have 3 months left. The land is important. When we start restoring it, we can, even if we don't start creating roads, the government can see that, okay, the land is good, the land is stable. We can start creating the land. We can start building houses. We can start building roads. We can start creating spaces for farmland. From that farmland, while everything is going on, it takes time for things to grow, I understand. That is all the more reason we should start with the lithosphere, because water pollutants, air pollutants can be taken care of on that time, with enough time, that fast. But lithosphere, all the more to start with the lithosphere. So please let us all take note of this. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please let's have the final rebuttal from who. Please go ahead.
All right. I'd like to confirm that I'm audible.
You are.
All right. With that being said, I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, notice how at the beginning of my speech, I mentioned that while this debate might be focused on which sphere is most important, it is beyond that and embodies how hope can be restored to the town of Nugo and the city of Sugal at large. Further reinstating my point and extending on the point of my supporting speaker, referencing back to what we have said, Lithosphere and Nathosphere have claimed points that have already supported and proven to you why Hydrosphere and our own side of the house supersedes that. How, you may ask? Take, for example, the issue of acidic rain. Atmosphere claimed that Hydrosphere could lead to acid rain. But that is what we are instigating because we are trying to prevent things like acidic rain. As I had earlier defined in the context of Hydrosphere's definition, how rain is part of the water body. So because we are trying to prevent acid rain, this is why it is important to take Hydrosphere as the first sphere to start for the starting point for restoration efforts. Also, when I mentioned transportation, which Atmosphere has claimed to understand, I did not say that land and air means of transportation do not exist. I only said that according to the United Nations World Trade Organization, it was recorded that Hydrosphere takes 80%. That means water contributes to 80% of the transportation system. That means it is the major transportation system. And I linked it to how it is important for international relations, for trade, and we are not just talking about the short-term goals, but the long-term goals. But even bringing it back to the short-term goals, notice how it is important that this 1 year is crucial for the restoration of the town of Nugu to save the 50 years work of these scientists who have tried to restore a land of work for over 100 years. What does this mean? This 1 year is crucial, and as a result, Hydrosphere should be the first starting point in the first 3 months, because if Hydrosphere is made the first starting point, then there is hope and opportunity for Lithosphere and Atmosphere to come in, and then in general, the entire land of Nugu can then be restored. And not just restored, hope is restored. A lot more is restored. Now, back to rebuttals. Lithosphere claimed that it is easier to map out land, but have they forgotten that even water bodies are named? We have different oceans. We have the Atlantic Ocean. We have the Pacific Ocean. These things are named. These things are measured. We know the depths of this ocean. In technological age, in 21st century, I find it wrong and I find it disrespectful that you claim that only land can be measured, only land can be seen as significant progress when water bodies are there, knowing fully well that 70% of the earth is covered with water and only 30% is land. Also, they claim that greenhouse gas emission is important, and that is why they should focus on air, which is atmosphere. But let me remind you that oceans absorb approximately 25% of carbon monoxide, which is CO2, released into the atmosphere. So while Lithosphere might claim that we should plant trees and farm, if things like acidic rain happens, it kills the plants, it kills the people, which is why Hydrosphere should be taken first. Also, even if plants are made on land because land is restored, let's not forget that in as much as trees can serve as a source for oxygen, water serves as a greater source. The ocean serves as a greater source. 25% of atmosphere release of oxygen released in the atmosphere, and this includes aquatic plants, which can also perform photosynthesis just like normal plants on land. Not also forgetting the fact that it is not just plants that are involved, animals, we humans are involved. So what is the point of farming and agriculture if we do not eat? If the plants in the sea and the animals in the sea are killed, what then is the point of agriculture? Also, to even focus on the agriculture, it was recorded that 70% of water is used in agriculture. And with that, we are proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all the speakers. for wonderful points, and I'm sure the GSAMs on the call have listened, and they are taking down, they are writing, jotting things down and taking things away. And those that did not present also are jotting things down and taking things away. So before I continue, 3, 2, 1, let me say that tonight's presentation has been wonderful. It's been amazing. It's been electric. I expected fireworks, and we have fireworks. So we'll go back to the chat, the WhatsApp group now, to round up the rest of the activities for the night. And you know that we expect the scores to come in. So once we get to the WhatsApp group, I'll be sending in the current standings of the HL, so we can look at it, see who is where, who is going to relegation with the Manchester Uniteds of this world, and who is winning before the scores come in. So while we wait for the scores to come in, also I would like to ask some questions. I would like to ask some questions. I don't know. Let me just look at the names. Any name that I like, I'll call out the person and ask my question. Solomon Ume was the presenter for the conscious, so I'm not going to ask him another question. I'm looking for somebody that did not send. So based on the presentations so far, who do you think is winning this debate this night? Just give me some response in the chat room. Who is winning? Which GSAG is taking it home, according to you, based on what you just heard? Bunda Precious is a strong supporter of the entrepreneurs, and she says the entrepreneurs GSAG are winning. I guess we'll have to find out. Yes, of course. Adejimi will say the conscious. The conscious. Well, I think if we're going by reactions in the chat room, the entrepreneurs and the conscious are leading at the moment. Okay, so yes, we'll reconvene on the WhatsApp group where we'll take other activities for the night while we wait for the results to come in. Like I said, so I'll see you all on the other side. Thank you very much for joining. We really appreciate your presence. See you on the WhatsApp group.